Mayor, come right up. You're after me, so come right on up. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here on this cool, cloudy day, but really a day we're celebrating additional progress on all of our work to improve and restore our ferry service. And this has been a priority of mine since I was running for governor and elected as governor, and throughout my early days in this administration. And I just want to start by saying how much I appreciate the hard work of everybody connected with our ferry system, who's working so hard, the crew who work on the vessels, but it's really been a team effort to get to this point, a lot of focus, and you'll be hearing from some of the elected officials as well who've been very involved in this effort. The last time we were here, I think we were indoors last time in March, I announced a plan to fully restore the state's domestic ferry system to pre-pandemic levels by this summer. That was admittedly an ambitious goal, but we're all really pleased to be here today to celebrate that important milestone. Starting on Sunday, we will expand service on the Bremerton route, restoring two-boat service for the first time in 3 years. We also have additional service expansion over the coming weeks, which I'll talk about in a moment. So I want to mention I'm joined by a number of folks. The folks you'll be hearing from after I speak: Bremerton Mayor Greg Wheeler. Mayor Wheeler has been vocal about how vital consistent ferry service is for Bremerton and the entire Kitsap Peninsula. You were here last time we had this gathering. We talked about coming back when that additional line was coming online, so it's great to see you again. Representative Greg Nance is joining us. He'll also be speaking. Representative Nance represents the 23rd District, which includes parts of Bremerton, as well as northern Kitsap County and Bainbridge Island. Representative Nance has been a strong advocate for ferries, including hosting numerous Fixed Our Ferries town halls across Kitsap County. You'll also be hearing from Senator Marco Lias, who's the chair of our Senate Transportation Committee, responsible for the transportation budget. We're also joined by Senator Krishna Dawson. We appreciate her strong support for all of our efforts to improve our ferry service. So first, I'm just going to talk about our progress toward restoring full service, and I'll also give a brief update on our long-term planning. Then you'll hear from our speakers, and we're happy to take our questions. If it works for all of you, I think there's some interesting questions beyond ferries. So I think what I'll do is take ferry questions first, if that's okay. Then we'll just excuse our guests here, and I'm happy to take a couple questions. I do have a meeting after this press conference, but I'm happy to take a couple questions if folks have them about other subjects. So for too long, commuters traveling to and from Bremerton have had to wait 2.5 hours between boats every day. The good news is, starting on Sunday, not anymore. By adding this additional vessel, we are cutting that wait time by a full hour, and this expansion is permanent. Again, this route has been reduced for multiple years. The Bremerton route expansion is just the beginning of our efforts in the next several weeks. We are also on track to permanently restore a third boat on the Triangle route between West Seattle, Vashon Island, and Southworth on the Kitsap Peninsula at the end of the month. This route has been reduced for 3 years as well. We also plan to add a second boat to the Port Townsend-Coupeville route for the summer between Friday and Monday, starting on July 4th. We have not been able to do this summer expansion on that route for 5 years. Riders on those routes will have more frequent ferry service, offering flexibility in their travel to work and their appointments. In order to fully restore domestic service, we do need one of our largest vessels, the Wenatchee, back in the water. And I believe we talked about the Wenatchee the last time we were all here. As many of you all know, the Wenatchee has been out of service undergoing hybrid electric conversion. The Wenatchee originally went out for service for that conversion in September of 2023. That conversion took longer than anticipated. The good news is it is almost back in the water. The Wenatchee's conversion has been completed, so it's now undergoing sea trials to ensure it's back in operational shape. So just give you a sense of what that looks like. Over the last several weeks, engine room and deck crews, along with battery company technicians and others, have been running the boat through operations over dozens of trials on the water. The good news is, so far, everything's going well. If all continues to go as planned, we will have the Wenatchee back into service the first week of July. So that's coming very soon, which is great news indeed. At that point, we will have 21 vessels in total, which will allow us to have 18 boats in the water at any one time. So that allows us to restore full domestic service for the first time since 2019. Just to give you a sense of how this works, we like having 18 vessels in the water while 3 are going through maintenance. And that's just a routine process that we have, but this is the first time in a number of years that we've had that full 21 vessel fleet. Also, that's critically important to have the time for that maintenance because our fleet is aging. And so we have more work to do. We celebrate this moment, of course. I think it's important to do that, but we also recognize we have more work to do because we have an aging fleet. But with the Wenatchee coming back into service and the decision to delay the conversion of other vessels, the other 2 ferries, until after the World Cup, we will have all 21 vessels back. Finally, I want to give a brief update on our long-term vision for maintaining the level of ferry service Washingtonians expect and deserve. As you all know, this was a very tough budget year. It was tough for our operating budget. It was also tough for our transportation budget. There was a significant shortfall in that transportation budget. I appreciate the fact that I had the opportunity to work with legislative leaders who share my priority of restoring and maintaining our ferry service. So Senator Elias and also Representative Jake Fye, along with legislators who are here with us today, have helped keep ferry service a top priority. So thanks to their hard work, here's what's in the budget that was adopted just several weeks ago. $1.3 billion for new vessels to replace part of our aging fleet, and approximately $40 million for crew hiring, retention, and training, which is equally important. We need to have the vessels, but also part of the challenges we had was the challenges on the workforce. There was an excellent article in the Seattle Times just recently that talked about the wonderful work that Steve from our ferries operation really spearheaded to get a workforce training operation in place to increase the number of individuals joining the ferry system and really improving our system. So that work continues, but our budget allows for investments in that as well. So looking to the future of the fleet, as you know, we've received bids for the construction of new vessels. We're still reviewing those. That'll be an important decision. So, I want to take my time with that. We're having many conversations. Those conversations will continue. Obviously, as soon as a decision is made, which will be relatively soon, we'll be reporting back to you and the public on that decision. One more thing I just want to mention before I turn this over to the mayor, and that is that we continue to explore a range of options to get additional vessels in the water. So, for example, I think back in March, I mentioned that we're looking at potential lease to purchase arrangements to get more boats in the water at the best possible price. I have directed the team to gather information about what those options might look like, and they are going to report back to me soon on what that might look like. So again, it's taking multiple fronts to really address this challenge. The crew, the vessels, different types of processes. The bid process, but also looking at, lease to purchase as well. And I think that's what it's going to take moving forward, is making sure we're doing everything we can to treat this as the crisis that it has been. But I think it's while we recognize the challenges ahead, and there will be challenges ahead, that's the way these things work, but I do think it's important to celebrate the milestones that come along. And this is certainly a milestone for sure to get us back to those pre-pandemic levels and restore that full domestic service. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to the mayor of Bremerton, who really just has been a great colleague to work with on this, and just really appreciate your support throughout this process, Mayor.
My pleasure.
You bet.
All right. Well, thank you, Governor. And as Governor said, I'm Greg Wheeler, Mayor of the City of Bremerton, and it is my honor to be here as part of today's announcement. I want to thank the Governor again. I want to thank you, Governor Ferguson, for inviting me today. We are a ferry-dependent community, and for decades, the Washington State Ferry system has been a critical transportation link for our residents in Bremerton, nearby communities, our workforce, and our businesses. We're excited that Bremerton will once again have a 2-boat service beginning this Sunday. So after operating at reduced service levels for several years, this move will significantly make a difference for residents and support their livelihoods. I want to show my appreciation to Governor Ferguson for fulfilling the promise to fully restore the state Bremerton Seattle Ferry route. We have faced a crisis in our community due to the ongoing lack of service. Our residents, workforce, businesses, and economy have suffered from ferry disruptions, cancellations, and lack of boats. Now, our community will once again be able to rely on the state ferry service to access jobs, medical appointments, and essential travel. And transportation will be restored for thousands of residents who attend major sporting events and other activities in Seattle. The full restoration is happening at a good time. We anticipate that the additional service will also bring more visitors to Bremerton beginning this summer. The renewed trust in Washington State Ferries Bremerton-Seattle route will encourage people to rediscover our community and will stimulate our economy. I want to show my appreciation that the Washington State Ferry system will also be in full service for the FIFA World Cup in 2026 in Seattle. The ferry system will be a vital link to the city of Bremerton, which will be a FIFA van zone during the World Cup next year. So again, I can't say this enough. I want to take this opportunity to thank Governor Ferguson and his administration for their partnership in bringing back service levels back up for the Washington State Ferry system. This really is a game changer for our community. It's a privilege to be here and be part of today's announcement. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Greg Nance, and I proudly represent Kitsap in the State House. Neighbors count on our ferry to get to work, to get to school, and to get to the doctor. For too long, folks in Bremerton have faced service cuts and cancellations. Today, we turn the page on disruption and delay, and we return to connection, progress, and possibilities. Restoring full ferry service between Bremerton and Seattle is a big deal for folks on both sides of the Sound. For working families, it restores a lifeline. It means reliably reaching morning meetings on time, and after a full day, getting back home in time for dinner. For small businesses, it means customers through the door, smooth commutes for colleagues, and signals that Washington is open for business. For our region's economy, it strengthens supply chains and workforce mobility. It means more affordability for more folks. For students and seniors, it means reliable access to school and to healthcare. That's why today matters. Because when we restore ferry service, we restore more than a two-boat schedule. We restore community and connection. We restore opportunity and optimism. As a lifelong ferry rider, this mission is personal to me, and I'm honored to work with this terrific team to fix our ferries. I want to thank Governor Ferguson for taking bold and decisive action to right the ship. I want to thank Washington State Ferries directors Steve Nevy and John Vizina for the strong and steadfast leadership to author this great comeback story. Our hardworking WSF crew, over 1,800 strong, that work 24/7, 365 to keep boats sailing safely. Your dedication and professionalism have helped us reach this milestone. Every neighbor who wrote to our office, visited the Capitol, or attended one of our town halls, your voice matters, and it helped us get here. Mayor Wheeler, I'm grateful for your partnership and all you do in our community. I'm also thankful to colleagues in the legislature, like Senate Transportation Chairman Marco Lias and Senator Deborah Krishna-Dasan, who do great work in the Senate, and to House colleagues like House Transportation Chair Jake Fye and Representative Dave Paul, who've been champions for WSF every step of the way. As we restore ferry service between Seattle and Bremerton, we honor our maritime history and heritage, and we write the next chapter together, providing passage to shared progress and prosperity. This route represents the best of us and the best of who we are, a people connected not just by geography, but by grit, by craft, and by care for one another. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Marco Lias, Senator from Snohomish County, and I have the great privilege of chairing our Senate Transportation Committee. I also have the great privilege of representing the Mukilteo and Edmonds ferry communities. Really excited at this milestone we're reaching today. And this is really the culmination of several years of hard work. It began with Move Ahead Washington making initial investments in the future of our fleet. And by the way, when this two-boat service starts on Sunday, kids ride free, thanks to Move Ahead Washington. So grab your kids, hop on the ferry, and enjoy the views. This is also a reflection of the incredible leadership that Steve Nevy has brought to our ferry system. When I travel around the state, I say, we have an executive who worked for Holland America, making our ferry service the best in the world. And he brings private sector experience and deep roots in our ferry communities to get this work done. So thank you, Steve and John and the team. We are also so blessed, and Governor Ferguson, your best decision in January was appointing Julie Meredith as Secretary of Transportation. Julie got Bertha unstuck, and she's getting our ferries unstuck here in Washington State. She's doing incredible work, so thank you, Julie, for your leadership. We also faced a really hard choice this session, and in the Senate, we were clear about what the budget would look like with no new resources. We actually released a no revenue budget, and that no revenue budget showed two devastating things for ferries. A reduction of our workforce development programs that are so successful, those funds would have had to be eliminated, and we would have had to cancel at least one, if not two, new vessel builds. And that was unacceptable to us. And that's why, working in a bipartisan fashion with my Republican colleague Curtis King from Yakima, we brought forward a revenue proposal that restores the funding, and not just restores it, but builds on the funding that we provided for ferries. So when Washingtonians on July 1st show up and see their gas tax has gone up and they wonder, what is this paying for? It's paying for two boat service, the crews and the vessels that our ferries need to get to where they need to go. We are investing these dollars in the investments that Washingtonians are really counting on in this moment. And we are not done yet. This is just getting back to baseline. Now we're going to put that beautiful new hybrid ferry into service in a few weeks, and we're going to buy some new boats, and we need some terminal upgrades as well. Fauntleroy and up in Anacortes, we need to be continuing to build on the greatness of this ferry system. This is a huge milestone, a huge step forward. I also just want to highlight one final thing. Our crews have been through so much over the course of the pandemic, over the course of all this challenge in our communities, and I love the community groups, and Mayor, your communities have been great to say, don't squawk on the dock, don't take it out on the incredible folks on the boats. They're not responsible for the cuts that have been made. But I also want to highlight Senator Krishna Dasan's work to actually cement protections for our state workers, our state ferry workers in state law. State ferry workers didn't have the same protections as other transit workers do from bad conduct on our ferries. Senator Krishna Dasan said that's not fair. This year she led the effort to pass a law to ensure that every transit worker, whether you're on a boat or a bus, have the protections to do the job you need to do safely and efficiently. So this has been a team effort. We're going to continue to deliver, and Governor Ferguson, we're so grateful. I was just reflecting, we spent more time at ferry terminals together than we have in the governor's office. This is our third ferry terminal that we're touring together. So thank you for your leadership, and thanks for all you're doing.
Thanks, Marco. Really great. That is actually true. And we have another one scheduled in the San Juan Islands. Right. I think next month we're heading to the San Juan Islands to reach out to the community and hear from the community, and to get their feedback and share updates as well. A couple quick thoughts before we take your questions. I appreciate all the comments that our speakers made. Representative Nance, you're right. It is a comeback story. Everybody loves a comeback story, right? And I think that is what this symbolizes. And I was also reflecting on that Julie Meredith and I were in Spokane earlier this week on Monday, I think it was, and for a press conference, and that was for a different project related to transportation, the North Corridor project in Spokane, which is a huge project, many years it's been going on, really even decades in the concept. But we were able to announce, hey, the final funding to complete the final 3 phases of that critical project in Spokane. A lot of community members were there. And so really what we're doing here today and what we were doing in Spokane is similar, right? Comeback stories, finish projects, make the investments. It's what working people need all across our state, and I think just as a governor, and I know everybody here shares this commitment, demonstrating we can complete these projects, we can complete these comeback stories, we can get people moving again, make their lives a little bit easier, a little bit better, and I'm just so excited about the announcement today. And just will underscore again, though, we're mindful of the challenges ahead, right? This is not the end of the story. I think everybody recognizes that. We need to be vigilant. We need to keep investing in our crews, in our vessels, and we're committed to doing that. So with that, we're happy to take any questions folks have. And again, let's start with ferries, and then we'll excuse some of our guests. I'm happy to take 1 or 2 more. Yeah, go ahead.
Starting with ferries, the fast ferry service, that had received some state funding and we're going to keep that going. So now where does that fall into all of this?
On the updates with the fast stories, do you want to provide a quick update, Steve? Yeah. Do you mind just repeating the question one more time so everybody could hear? But feel free to step all the way in, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, the question was about the the passenger-only service to Bremerton. That's been funded to continue through the World Cup and then review that service after that. That's the current status.
And I know that Washington State Ferries cannot legally provide that same service. Is there any way of looking at that and perhaps changing that in the future, or no, remain separate?
Yeah, there's a passenger-only ferry study underway at the moment, and I think it's almost finished, and then that's kind of made some recommendations on that moving forward, which we'd obviously have to discuss with the legislature and the governor's office and see what can be done there.
Thanks.
One more
Yes.
on bids, the review process. Can you elaborate on that? Who studies it? How was the decision made on reviewing the bids for the new buildings?
Sure. So the bids have come in, and the process is, multifaceted. But obviously, I've been briefed from the team multiple times at this point, and I guess what I just would say is that I understand that's an important decision for the future of our ferry system, and so I'm a believer that if you've got an important decision to make, be thoughtful about it, take your time, and have careful conversations with the experts. Also, we've had conversations with legislative leaders as well, just to make sure we're being thoughtful about the approach we're taking, because it's a big decision and an investment of significant resources, and we're mindful of that. So this is a decision that's going to put us years into the future, right? Commitments that are important. And so you can expect a decision soon, but we're just making sure in fact, I'll be having a conversation with Senator Elias and Representative Fye after this conversation, just to review our options and make sure I'm making the best decision possible. So more to come soon on that. Correct. That'll be a decision I'll be making, but obviously consulting closely with the folks I mentioned, others as well.
When you say relatively soon, we're talking weeks.
I won't put a time frame on it, but soon. We're actively engaged in this conversation. Yep.
I know you kind of went into it, but it was hoped that this decision would come in a week or two. It's been multiple weeks.
Yeah.
Exactly. So.
There's no holdup. It's just wanting to make sure we make a good decision. We have a couple bids. That's good. And we need to make sure we're thoughtful about that decision. So again, the decision will have implications for years, right? And significant dollars, right? More than $1 billion. That's a big decision. So taking the time to make sure that is thoughtful and the best decision possible, something that's extremely important to me. It's my first time as a governor making a decision like this. So I want to make sure I'm hearing all perspectives on those bids. So it's just making sure we do it right. So from my standpoint, I'm not shy about making decisions. We're delaying conversions. Everything is geared towards getting the most vessels in the water as quickly as possible. And it's a big decision. I just want to make sure I'm taking my time to do it right. It's nothing more complicated than that.
And the last one on the bids.
Yeah.
Reached out to the shipyards too that put in bids.
Steve, I guess I want to just...
The team has.
Yeah, the team has. The team has. Yep. Thanks. Any other questions on ferry service? Going once, going twice? Awesome. Hey, thanks everybody. So I'm going to excuse our guests here. Thank you all for being here. Yeah, and really appreciate it. But yeah, thanks so much. You bet. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, appreciate it. And so happy to take a couple questions. Yeah, go for it.
What is your reaction to the protest that happened last night when things got out and firecrackers were thrown at crowds of officers?
Yeah, so I've spoken with Mayor Brown about what happened. Obviously, I was following developments closely, and number one, as I understand it, there were no serious injuries, is my understanding. That's the latest report I have. I'm thankful for that. Number two, these are challenging situations, right? Folks have the right to protest, but when things turn violent or if folks are violating the law, there's going to be consequences. My understanding is multiple arrests were made. Hey, if someone's violating the law, that's appropriate, and that needs to happen. So I'm directly in regular conversation, like I said, with the mayor to make sure we're updated. As I understand, things are calm there now, and so I appreciate her work, and she has difficult decisions to make, but appreciate that things are calm now and that nobody was seriously hurt.
And we're talking about what happened both in Seattle and in Spokane. Given what the Trump administration did in California, do you have concerns that could happen here?
Oh, I absolutely have deep concerns that the decision that Donald Trump made in California could be replicated here. What I would add to that is there's an important hearing going on today. I think it begins at 1:30 in the Northern District of California, federal court in California, in which the state of California has filed a lawsuit against the federal government challenging the president's authority to federalize the National Guard without Governor Newsom's approval, which is an extremely important point here. We believe the law is clear. In fact, the law actually says the governor shall approve. That is the language in the relevant statutes. But I would not be surprised if a federal judge makes that decision today after that hearing takes place. So as you can imagine, we're following that very, very closely. And it is obviously our hope that that decision is in favor of California and provides some clarity on what the administration can and can't do when it comes to federalizing the troops without the approval of the governor. So we're obviously monitoring all sorts of situations in real time, including that court decision. I've obviously had multiple conversations with our National Guard, with local law enforcement, with elected officials here. I've canceled my weekend plans, so I'll be here in Seattle and to monitor developments over the weekend as well. So we are doing everything we can to prepare. What I'll also add is, to be clear, we haven't just started preparing for this potential action by the president in the last 48 hours. Months ago, we started preparing on the legal front, back during my time when I was still Attorney General during the transition, to review what the president's authority is and is not when it comes to federalizing the National Guard. So I've had multiple briefings on the legal issues over a period of many months. So this is not a new issue for me, but obviously now as we come into the weekend and events are going on in Seattle and Spokane, obviously I've elevated the number of conversations I'm having with leadership across the state to make sure we're as prepared as possible for what's coming.
Governor, have you heard anything about the potential ICE strike teams that they're sending to the state? And do you fear the Trump administration will ramp up ICE enforcement as retribution for Washington State?
We've heard nothing, at least in my office. I want to be clear from my office. We've heard nothing. My understanding is that's consistent with what Mayor Harrell, for example, has said. I don't believe he or his team has heard anything either. You'll want to confirm that with him. That's my understanding as well. And I think the second part of your question was that my concern. Sorry, do you mind repeating that?
Any concern that the Trump administration will take sort of retribution against Washington?
Well, I mean, of course we're concerned that the president will do here what he did in California, and which, by the way, his actions only serve to escalate the situation in California, and we believe it's illegal. That's a bad combination. An illegal action that escalates a situation. And so we believe that for the protests that are happening here, that we here in Washington State, working with local law enforcement, can handle the situation. And so, of course, we're concerned about that. And that's why I and my team were spending a lot of time working with local law enforcement, elected officials, the community, to make sure we're as prepared as possible.
Governor, I want to look past the protest on Saturday, maybe even into Sunday, where we know we're going to start seeing those first World Cup games here in Seattle.
Yeah.
We're hearing that ICE is going to be present and staged at Lumen Field. We're already starting to see those ticket prices from hearing that these matches are struggling to be sold. Prices were at $350 for a ticket a year ago. Now, if you look on Ticketmaster, I think the lowest I saw was $30-40.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you react to ICE being at these games when the agency claims that they're going to be there to keep people safe?
Yeah, we have some time to prepare for that, for the World Cup, and so we will be preparing for that. Right now I'm focused on what's in front of us right now. We have a situation in California, and there are concerns that situation may be replicated here in Washington State. So right now, that's what we're focused on. We are, of course, having ongoing conversations in general about what the administration is doing, including with the World Cup. But right now, my focus is on what's in front of us today, tomorrow, and over the weekend.
So you don't anticipate them being here for the match on Sunday?
They are not. I want to be clear. We are not getting. I'm not getting communication from the federal government what they're doing. I want to be very clear about that. So, but. We, of course, are very focused on the days ahead of us and making sure we're doing everything we can to ensure the president does not take an illegal action here in Washington State. I'm in regular communication, as you might imagine, with our AG's office about this as well. And so we're taking all the right approaches to make sure we're having conversations with the community, public safety leaders, and elected officials as well.
Is it safe to say that you haven't seen a negative impact on the matches, on the games being sold? I mean, leading up to the World Cup, the matches start this Sunday. We have a couple matches, the 17th and so forth, and the rest of them.
I can't speak to whether there's been a negative impact or not, right? What I can speak to is what we are doing to prepare for what's going on right now in real time with the federal administration and what's happening in California and events here in Seattle and Spokane as well, and that's our focus. Yeah. I have. Well, I'll keep that between me and her, and feel free to ask her if she wants to share that. But obviously, I know Mayor Brown very, very well, have a good deal of respect for her, and had seen her out in Spokane earlier this week, for example, as well. So yes, we had a conversation, a good conversation. She updated me on events that were happening in Spokane and decisions she had made, and just offered to be helpful to her in any way that I could, and just appreciate that, decisions aren't easy, if you're a mayor in a situation like that. So I was really calling just to hear what had happened, to hear her perspective, and to offer any support I could. And so I just appreciate that conversation. Obviously, I'll be staying in touch with her. Had a conversation with Mayor Harrell yesterday. Again, just want to reinforce many conversations are going on to make sure that as governor, we're offering any assistance we can. Yeah, what I can say is I'm having conversations with our National Guard, right, with our general. I won't go beyond that, right? What I'll say is, my job is to make sure we're as prepared as possible, that we're communicating with folks all across the state, that we're using the best information that we can, we're being coordinated about our efforts. And many more meetings are ahead. We'll also be having, by the way, a press conference tomorrow is our plan to talk more about these events as well. Maybe I can take one more, but I do have to run to a meeting. One more question, anyone else? I don't.
What will you say to the protest?
Say it again.
What thoughts do you have to say to the people who will gather?
Yeah, in fact, we'll have a press conference tomorrow that'll be communicating this as well. What I'll say to folks who'll be protesting is, obviously in our country, the right to protest is fundamental, right? The right to speak out is fundamental. I've participated in many marches. I've participated in many protests. That's fundamental. The main thing I want to say to folks who engage in that constitutional right is obviously do that in a peaceful way. Anything that is not peaceful, anything that violates the law or is violent, only does one thing. It plays into Donald Trump's hands. I'll be crystal clear about that, right? That only plays into his hands. That's what he wants to see. And so, look, if folks engage in unlawful conduct, they're going to be held accountable for their conduct. But they should know all they are doing is helping out Donald Trump. And so that's my message today. That'll be my message tomorrow, and that'll be my message going forward. But again, want to underscore the importance of peaceful protest, how important that is in our democracy, and I support that. And but want to make sure folks do that in the right way, and that's why we'll be talking about that again tomorrow as well. I honestly I don't know yet at this point. I know is I've canceled my plans to go to my daughter's softball tournament out of state. I rarely miss a game, but I'm going to be here. But I haven't. That decision I just made earlier this week, so I wasn't planning going anywhere because I was going to be watching softball. But I'll be here now instead. But I haven't made any decisions beyond that. As you can imagine, it's a busy time. My focus right now is just making sure I'm communicating with all the appropriate individuals, make sure our efforts are coordinated. We have clear chains of command, that folks are communicating on a regular basis, and that's my focus right now. Thanks so much.
If you bring the National Guard involved, you had conversations.
Yeah.
We've seen what's going on in California. Do you worry if the National Guard does involved that things escalate even more?
Of course. What happened in California when the president federalized the National Guard was an escalation. That's the direct result of that decision, that unlawful decision, I might add. And so, of course, that is the issue that is right in front of us right now. And so that's why we're watching the developments in the court case in California very closely today. And that is what much of our preparation is for. And so I don't want to get out ahead of it beyond that, but I think we're taking all the appropriate steps to make sure we're ready for that on the legal front, but also making sure we're prepared for anything that might happen from an illegal action by the president here in Washington State. Thanks so much, everybody. Really appreciate your time. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Governor.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah. And I think I'm joining. Thanks so much. Great. Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Yeah.